A lot of times people seem to think that Americans get to have the best of everything. We don't know much about the other things, but there's one aspect in which the Americans are seriously missing out on, and that is cars. From the Lotus 340R to the Land Rover Defender, here are some of the sweetest rides that car enthusiasts living in the United States are missing out on. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 7. The Lotus 340R. Sold only in Europe and Japan, the Lotus 340R is one of the most unique vehicles of the 2000s. Initially intended to be just a concept car, it was first introduced in the 1998 Birmingham Car Show. This vehicle was used as a custom body shell with no roof or doors. With a silver or black color scheme, the Lotus 340R has a top speed of 133 miles per hour. The car was never manufactured in America, no matter how high the public demands were. It was because of the fact that it was unable to meet the US safety rules and regulations. Despite being a 4-cylinder supercar, the Lotus 340R was not really that competitive when it came to speed. However, one of its biggest selling points and the reason why the car was surrounded with so much hype was because of its unique and stylish design as compared to the other vehicles you might have seen on the road in everyday life. Even though the car wasn't really that fast, it still performed a lot better than the other models with larger engines. But how? Let's take a trip back to the 8th grade. Remember how objects with lesser mass had more speed? That's the case with the Lotus 340R. Being fast is convenient, but the fact that these cars are so lightweight makes it easy for them to flip over like they're made out of plastic. And if anything, that makes the cars a danger to everyone else on the road. So, due to being unable to fulfill the standards set by the US road safety laws, these cars were and still are banned in the United States. Number 6. Porsche Carrera 911 RS. The next one on our list was a fan favorite when it got released. One of the most special models after its release, the Porsche Carrera was nothing like the rest of its batch. The 911 RS was lighter and faster than the rest. In fact, it was developed as powerful, larger, and more comfortable as a replacement for the Porsche 356, which was the company's first model. Easily considered one of the most consistent and commonly used race cars of its time, the Porsche Carrera 911 RS is one of the two in the top 5 that had remained continuously in production. But it seems like the manufacturers weren't really that mindful of the US car safety laws and were just focused on the car's speed rather than making customer safety a priority. Another huge selling point of the Porsche Carrera 911 was the fact that it was one of the cheapest Porsches of its time, so owning a vehicle wasn't a luxury limited to a particular financial class. With a 2.7L engine and 210 horsepower, the 911 RS was one of the fastest cars in the 1970s. But due to its compromised safety design, no matter how badly the car enthusiasts wanted to increase their collection, they couldn't drive it on the streets of America. Number 5. Nissan Patrol. One of the most useful vehicles during the Second World War, the Nissan Patrol was introduced for an all-terrain travel, especially for countries like Japan where they could be used as reliable vehicles for hospitals, military, and firehouses. During the World War, the car's engine strength was prioritized and details like emissions weren't really focused on, so the Nissan Patrol was a regularly used vehicle back then. It has been available as either a short wheelbase SWB 3-door or a long wheelbase LWB 5-door chassis since 1951. But things changed with the passage of time, and a lot of countries weren't okay with the amount of pollution that a single vehicle caused. And just like that in America, these large vehicles were declared unfit to be used on the roads. According to reports, the car emissions were way too out of hand and obnoxiously high for the US vehicle emission standards. In late 2020, it was rumored that new and improved versions of the SUV will be launched, but the manufacturer never worried much about the product not selling in the United States, as it was a very popular vehicle all over the world. Number 4. Nissan Pulsar. Another member of the Nissan family that has been banned on American grounds is the Nissan Pulsar. Named after a highly magnetizing neutron star, the Nissan Pulsar was sold at Nissan dealership stores as the intermediate model between the Nissan Violet and Cherry. Despite not being allowed in the United States, this car is still in production to this day and still has been for a decent demand. One of the biggest reasons behind its attraction for customers is the continuous modification and betterment by the manufacturers. One of the most noticeable improvements was the increase in engine power from a mere 78 horsepower in its engine strength, and it went up to 227 horsepower. Besides the modifications, the Nissan Pulsar was like a breath of fresh air for all the people who were sick of driving small SUVs. In fact, it was considered one of the most family-friendly vehicles at its time. The manufacturers behind the Nissan Pulsar have been incredibly responsive towards the feedback they got and even gave the customers a lot of choices. For example, people could buy the model in either four-wheel drive or not, depending on whatever area they lived in or however they decided to drive their vehicle. However, the car hasn't seen the light of day in America as its engine build was unacceptable by American standards, hence there was no advertisement or intention to sell the car to Americans. Number 3. Alfa Romeo Giulietta. These automobiles were released in a set of 3 and were created by an Italian car manufacturer, Alfa Romeo. Out of the 3 cars that were released, the first one was a rear-wheel drive and 4-door saloon coupe, Spider, and estate forms. The second Giulietta car was very similar to the first one, except it was a rear-wheel drive and 4-door sedan. The third and last one was the Alfa Romeo Giulietta, which was a front-wheel drive family hatchback produced from 2010 to 2020. Out of the 3 models released, the third one, the Alfa Romeo Giulietta 940, was banned. The reason? Its engine. Just like a lot of other Italian things, this vehicle was more about the looks than performance and didn't really offer much in terms of engine strength. One of the most noticeable features about the Alfa Romeo Giulietta was its leather seats and its optional hatchback. The car was even awarded second place in the 2011 European Car of the Year Awards. The reason behind it being discontinued was that despite all the beauty and a decent level of talent, the Giulietta wasn't a panacea for Alfa. The Giulietta only sold 10,718 units in its last year of production across Europe. However, this number accounted for 30% of Alfa Romeo's total European volume. Number 2. Aston Martin Virage. This vehicle was first released as a replacement for the Aston Martin's V8 models. More similar to the Aston Martin Lagonda as compared to the V8 it replaced, the Virage was a lot more fresh and modern. The V8 replacement had a top speed of 158 miles per hour and an engine power of 350 HP. The car also had a 2x2 Roadster that contained a 5.9L V12 engine that was intended as the company's flagship model. After it gained popularity, more and more controversy started to surround it, which led to the discontinuation of the car. According to manufacturers, due to very slim distinctions between it, the DB9 and the DBS, the car couldn't be produced anymore. Another reason behind the extinction of this beauty was the lack of basic safety features. And if you know anything about American safety laws after watching this video, then you're well aware that they do not compromise on their standards. So, how can you expect them to grant permission to Aston Martin for a car that didn't even have passenger airbags and emitted way too much hazardous gases for its own good? Number 1. Land Rover Defender. Known worldwide for its rugged and versatile design and performance, our last car, which is banned in America, used to be a fan favorite as well. But before it got banned, the Land Rover Defender was one of the most famous pickup trucks and was even used by the American military for the war in the Middle East. But again, in situations like war, a lot of the time safety features are ignored while the engine power and overall the car's performance is noted. That is why when you're seen driving a Land Rover Defender in the United States, the authorities are bound to seize and destroy the vehicle. The only version that was allowed in the United States was the 1993 Land Rover Defender 110. Why? Was it meeting the safety standards? Well, initially it wasn't. Due to this, the manufacturers did a lot of modifications. Several features like brush guards, a roof rack, an external roll cage, and an air conditioning system were added to the American version of the vehicle, while all these things were absent in the European cars. Besides the lack of safety features in the car, another reason behind it being banned was its alloy cylinder head and direct injection, which caused the 1993 model to be banned by the NHTSA. With that being said, that's all for today. Click on one of the videos on your screen right now.